Hello, my name is Sonja Montiel. I am the founder of College Confidence. I am an educator, a mother of a fifth grader and first-year college student, wife to my high school sweetheart, and a soccer player through and through.
And I'm Hilary Bilbrey, inspired living strategist, author, speaker, mama to 3 teenagers, wife, and adventure seeker. You know, some things are just meant to be. Although we met randomly in a class, Sonja and I really became clear that our work, our values, and our heart align. Soon we began talking about our families and our worries and our businesses, our lives, and we realized we were helping each other move forward into our own confidence and integrity.
We understand that many people have this fear of showing such vulnerabilities that you and I were able to get to so quickly, and it's because of that alignment. But that vulnerability and those conversations are really a way to get to the heart of the matter. And so Decided Heart was born, and this is why we would love to invite you to join our conversations.
Welcome to Decided Heart Conversations. I have to tell you, our most listened to conversation ever was on Mother's Day. And I think part of it was so much resonated with all of us mothers out there that are wondering, how do we define ourselves, our identity? When did we lose who we were as people to motherhood? Or wait, did we gain something? And such an amazing conversation that took place. And we heard from so many of you. And Sonja and I have been talking and wondering, well, I wonder if that was a different experience for men. Father's Day is coming up, so why not take 3 of our favorite fathers and have a little conversation with them about growing up with their dads, their children now, how they see themselves. And by the way, if you're waiting to find out what you should do for Father's Day, they're going to give us some insight into some of the best things that they can think of for Father's Day as well. So we hope you really enjoy this show. And I'm going to throw it over to Sonja to introduce our first dad.
Yes, can't wait. I barely know this guy, Richard Montiel. We are high school sweethearts. So he is my husband. I was a junior in high school. He was a senior. So that's where it all started. And so grateful, Richard, that you've taken the courage and, are a father on his panel. It means a lot to me. So why don't you start by just saying what you do? Tell me a little bit about your children, maybe your favorite wife, but you can skip that. The hardest part about being a father and maybe the best part about being a father.
Sure. So what do I do? I'm a financial guy, CFO, numbers guy is really what I'm known for. Always chase the financials. I work for companies that work with people that work with their hands or see stuff being built. I've worked in construction, and then I worked in agriculture. And so those industries very much appeal to me because I could see things being built, being done, and allow me the flexibility to interact not only on the field, but also, pick up the stuff the dirt and work with the plants or operate the machinery that allow me those opportunities. But I also got the privilege of going back into the office and sit in the AC when it got too hot and then crunch the numbers. So having that choice was really important to me. And so that I always stuck to those industries and been lucky and made a living out of it. So when did I become a parent? A dad. I became a parent when we had our second child. We have two kids. We have a 19-year-old and we have a 12-year-old. And I didn't feel like a parent or a dad until my second child. And it was far into, she was maybe 4 years old. And so you know what? I feel like a dad now. My firstborn, it was just a haze. This is like this blur of, this responsibility of trying to do everything right, not only in my career, but making sure that, the bills were paid and that, we had enough to pay for the tuition for certain schools that we wanted her to go into. And so that was, I didn't get a chance to really enjoy myself as a person with that individual. And I look back at, at the moments that I have with my 12-year-old, and I say, God, I really missed a lot with my first one, just because of where I was mentally. And it wasn't about the financials. It was just about this personal push to in my mind try to be better, right? And ultimately left or sacrificed a little bit of relationship. I felt the relationship with my oldest was, and we have a wonderful relationship. Don't get me wrong, but this is just something that I learned that I didn't really become a parent, what I define as a parent, until later on into my second child. So let's see. So what was the other part of it?
The best part.
The best part. Gosh, the best part is enjoying the small moments, like reading together, working on projects. Although, I like them to work, on certain things, like building something together, right? And they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or let's go mow the lawn together. And they're looking at me like, what? You want me to do that? Or let's go prune the tree. And they're like, no, I don't think so, And then sometimes they'll go and join me for a little bit. But yeah, I think reading together, just going camping, riding the bike, walking and throwing stones at the beach. Those are the best moments.
Cool.
As a parent, and also teaching them a little bit, as best as I can, as to what my observations of the world is, and then finding out that in different ways they come back and you identify that they actually did pick up the lesson, right, in other ways. So those are always very rewarding, where you drill something in and you don't think it's going through, but then you see it in action maybe a year, 2 years later, unknown to them, and then you're just surprised. So those to me are what I think the best moments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Revealing all these chapters.
Yeah. and so I'm going to actually hand it over to Stephon Freeman. And I know Stephon from Taekwondo, and he has had this presence from the very moment that I met him in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, that was so calming. I was telling Sonja that there were only 2 people that I really liked to have hold my board, because they just had a presence about them that made me feel confident and calm and at peace. And Stephon was always one of those people. Excelled at Taekwondo, amazing. And maybe that'll even come into his identity. And watching him become a father, because I think you were a college student when we first met, weren't you?
I was, yes.
Yeah. And watching him become a father, and the joy that his daughter has, as well as watching him, has just been such a privilege. Even from afar, it's been a privilege. So when we were talking about doing this, I'm like, oh, man, I hope he says yes, because such a great guy. So Stephon, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, your daughter, the best part, the hardest part?
Sure. So I'm actually a full-time stay-at-home dad, and I'm a professional artist during nap time. What that means is my job in my mind is my daughter, and that's the main focus I have, and that's what I spend a great amount of my energy on, trying to raise her the best way I think I know how, figuring it out along the way. She'll be 2 next month. So I first became a father in 2018, July 20th, 2018, a little before 3:27 p.m. So that's when I became a father, as soon as I saw my daughter. As soon as I was able to hold her in my hands. I was in the hospital the whole time. We stayed there however many days. Seemed like forever, but not long enough at the same time. Just put life on pause. That was awesome. I used to work as a retail manager for a few different family video chains here in Wisconsin. And I decided to step back from that. And at the beginning of 2019, to stay home full time with my daughter, because my wife works for the university. She works for the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point in the admissions department. And I told her after we had Soraya, I said, it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to go back to work, if you want me to stay in this position, if you want me to stay home, I am more than willing to be a stay-at-home dad. And I used to always, not really joke, but I used to always tell her when we're first dating and after we got married that I'd be a stay-at-home dad if you want to work. I'm perfectly fine with that. And so I was actually able to get that, make that a reality. And so that was super exciting. And also I'm able to pursue my artistic dreams to be an artist, which I've been an artist for ever, but I'm finally deciding to pursue it as a career option. And it's been pretty good so far. So that's been pretty fun. The best part about being a dad so far, I mean, it's all great, honestly. I want to say it's all great. It's very interesting, the little things that you start to remember about being a kid, and you kind of watch your kid do simple things you kind of take for granted. Like she went from not being able to roll over to rolling over to crawling to walking to running, jumping, climbing, everything, and not being able to say any words to, simple words, da mama. And now she's putting thoughts together and telling you what kind of food she wants and what she doesn't want. She'll definitely tell you what she doesn't want. She has no problem telling you, no, I don't want that, no. So she's not shy in that way. And just watching all the little things, being able to see her develop, from reading a book. And I'll read a book, we read books to her all the time. Oh my goodness, she loves books. Far more than I thought she was going to, but it's really great because, I mean, we probably read her, I don't know, probably at least 10 books a day on a low end, on the low end days. And they're like various types of books, from Dr. Seuss books to other type of kid books. And some of them are shorter and some of them are longer, but she loves it. So that's great. The hard part is she is 2 or about to be 2, so she is a toddler. And so all of this is really new, navigating fatherhood and not really knowing. I had my own type of upbringing growing up, and I grew up with a lot of siblings, and that was kind of my upbringing with being the oldest of 7. And so it's interesting not really knowing how to go about doing things with her, trying to do things slightly different than how things were done when I was growing up for my siblings, trying to educate her as much as I can, trying to make sure she enjoys the simple things, running around, playing, being a kid, and not trying to push her to grow too quickly. But at the same time, I want to help her develop. So that's why we read so many books to her and we talk to her. Like I'm talking to you now is how I'll talk to my daughter. And I think that is helping her with her language development and understanding of what's going on around her. And so, yeah, it's just hard not knowing what's working and what's not working. I won't really know until later. And this, I feel like she's kind of not necessarily a test run for another kid, but it's our first kid, so we don't really know what we're doing. We're just kind of like, well, should we do this? Well, that's probably a good idea, or I don't know if we should do that, and we're just kind of combining our my knowledge of my wife and I, what we had growing up, and okay, we didn't like that growing up, so we won't do that. We love this, so we'll try to implement that, and just kind of seeing where it goes.
I think
I started rambling, I realized.
No, you're fine. You're fine, Stephon. Thank you so much.
What Richard said is you don't find out until years later, oh, we shouldn't have done that 5 years ago. That was okay. You just don't know.
And it was interesting listening to Richard talking. He was saying it took him a while to realize he was a dad. It was immediate for me. It was, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It was I'm a dad. This is my child. This is what I'm doing. I will drop everything and anything, which is interesting because art has always been my first love, and now even that's secondary. Like I say, I'm a full-time dad and a professional artist during that time, or whenever she's with mom or sleeping. And I do take my art seriously, and I have clients and I have projects and stuff that I do. But my daughter, it's just a different kind of love. It's so unique, never experienced before, and I don't really know. They're really different, So I knew immediately for me.
I think if Richard, I can speak on your behalf, and then we're gonna get to David. Is when our firstborn Bella was born, he had a final in college that day.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he was like. So one thing we were looking back, like, yeah, we were too young. We were can't we do that? But that's okay. So I remember, like, he's like, I gotta go to a final. I'm like, oh, your final. Okay, so David, let's introduce you. So David and I also go back. I don't even know how many years. Do you know, David? Like, is it a decade?
Oh yeah, way more than 19.
Oh,
19. No, 2005 or 6. Austin was a freshman in high school, and he was class of 09. So I'm saying 05 was when we met.
I don't like that, but that's okay, because it does show the relationship that you and I have. So I helped his son as a college counselor, and we just became connected. David has so many talents, but the one that I connected to was he's an author of a book. And I know that you're going to describe that a little bit, but when I was working on the high school side, I had David come and speak to the parents of seniors. We called it Letting Go. And David was our keynote speaker of how do you do that? And remember, we had like tissue boxes. and it was mostly mothers, and they're all looking at you like, how do I do it? And you just have such a phenomenal presence of being relaxed and being genuine and sincere. And you also have your music background. So I'm gonna bring it to you, David. So give us a summary of who you are, fatherhood, when you became a dad, best and maybe the toughest parts.
Well, I'm currently a marketing consultant, and I help local business owners find their audience online and get noticed, and that's my current. I spent 30 years in film and television post-production before I did that. Before I retired from that and started my own agency. And I can't help but notice that your choice of fathers here is perfectly split out between the father of a 2-year-old, the father of a couple of a preteen and a teenager, and I'm the old guy here. My son, we only have one, and he is 29 years old now.
What?
Yeah. So I became a father relatively late. I was 42 years old when Austin was born, because I didn't get married till I was 36. So Austin was born when I was 42, and that has some obvious drawbacks, when you're chasing an energetic kid around. But for me, I felt like the pluses far outweighed the drawbacks. Had I become a father even 10 years sooner, I think I would have missed so much of it. I wouldn't have been there for it. And so I think it was a plus for Austin, and it was a plus for me. I was a better father because it happened late in my life. I have to say the part that surprised me, I don't know if it's the best part, the part that surprised me the most about becoming a parent, the part that I was not prepared for, was that it was how much fun it was. I had no idea how much fun it was going to be a parent. And every day was just, it was like a new adventure. And people tell you, when they say, how old's your kid? And you go, oh, he's 3 or he's 4, he's 5. And there's always somebody who says, oh, that's the best age. But then as you find out as they grow, that every age is the best age. I mean, there's something different and something exciting and something more to learn with every phase that they go through. And so one of my favorite things about being a dad was when he was 3 or 4 years old and would still crawl up in my lap and we'd watch TV or something. To have him fall asleep on my shoulder, it still chokes me up a little bit to think about it right now. That's like one of my favorite memories ever. You know, I don't know if that's my favorite thing about being a father, but it's one of the things that when I think about it, still warms me, you know. And one of the hardest parts of being a parent to me, and I thought this before I became a parent, just looking at other parents and you know, judging how wrong they were doing everything.
It's amazing how well you can parent before you are a parent.
Yeah. It's amazing that when you don't have any kids, you can tell what everybody's doing wrong. But one of the hardest things and I've thought this before and after becoming a parent is consistency. Being consistent with your kids from day to day. If you decide that something is not allowable on Monday, this is something you cannot do under any circumstances. You can't then relent and let it happen on Friday. You know, if it's wrong on Monday, it has to be wrong on Friday. And sometimes that's really hard because sometimes you're tired and you just don't want to have that battle. And a lot of parents relent, and it's a hard thing to maintain. Consistency is a hard thing to maintain as a parent. So,
Stephon, are you listening to that? That's such great advice.
No, yeah, I hear it. I'm already working on that.
Because they know where all your buttons are, and especially, did you say you have a daughter?
I do.
Oh yeah. She's going to figure out really quickly how to wrap you right around her little finger and make you dance like a puppet.
She's definitely working on it.
Yeah.
And David, you also, I mean, the one thing that you didn't, the other part is you also are an author.
Well, I was a writer. I'm a member of the Writers Guild. I've written some TV and some screenplays. But what Sonja was referring to is when Austin left to go to college, I panicked. And I said, damn, there's a lot of things I don't know if I've said everything I need to say. And even the things that I may have said, maybe they need to be reiterated, you know? So I sat down over a period of a week or two and just, I wrote this letter to him. It was a letter I was going to give him, when he went to school. And it was just kind of a stream of consciousness thing. It was really a rambling mess. And I've said before that my first draft may as well have been the Unabomber's manifesto for all the sense it made. But then I sat down and edited it down to a 4-page single-space typewritten letter. And when we took him to school and left him in his dorm, I left that letter with him. And I had and when I got back home, I read the letter to myself a couple of times and realized that a lot of what I was saying was actually intended to make me feel better. It really, some of it had less to do with him than it did me. But I had a friend who was going through the same thing. She was, her son was leaving and she was emotionally unstable. And I shared the letter with her. I said, this might make you feel better. It actually, as I figured out that it was actually written for me and not for Austin, but I hope he got something out of it. Anyway, she's the one that came back to me and said, this should be a book. You should publish this. And I thought she was high. So what I did was I after getting Austin's permission to do so, I published it online. I had a blog at the time, and I published it on my blog. And it sort of went viral a little bit. I started getting letters and messages from all over the country about people just thanking me for publishing this letter. And how much it meant to them and how they were going to use it as a model. And one guy asked if he could just take it and give it to his son and pretend that he wrote it. And I said, I don't care. But that's what made me realize that, or made me think, okay, maybe my friend's right. And so about a year after I had written it, I published it as a very thin paperback book with some pictures of Austin throughout his life. And that's how it became a book. It was never written to be a book, but that's how it became one.
And I think that's why it was so popular, because the intimacy and the authenticity was in there. And so, you know, I'm gonna put the link to purchase this book on the, you know, the description and all that good stuff. But it's still just so relevant. And who knows? Maybe the other dads will be like, "Oh, I'm going to use this book."
Well, I'm sitting
here.
What's funny is right about this time of year, every year, right around high school graduation time and around going off to college time, the sales on Amazon spike, you know, for about a month at each point. So it's still there, and it's still, you know, still sells a few hundred copies.
There you go.
Some of us just had a son that graduated, so it's crazy. That Stephon, little Breck just graduated at 18 years old.
Oh, really?
Isn't that crazy? I know. He was
back. That means I've known you for a long time, actually.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? So I appreciate that. Thank you so much, David. So one of the things that we found really interesting when we were talking to the moms was they were talking about sort of losing their personal identity when they became moms. It became about being mom, and they sort of lost who they were. And we wanted to throw that out to you, and anyone can sort of talk. If we start talking over each other, we might jump in, but just a conversation about what is that like as a man coming into being a father, holding on to who you are as a man, as a husband, as all these other things. How do you see yourself and your identity within that framework?
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I was like Hilary said, that we met through Taekwondo. I actually took Taekwondo very seriously before having Soraya, and like I was a professional athlete. I traveled the country and to different parts of the world, competed in Taekwondo tournaments as a fighter, sparring competitor for I don't know, many years, maybe 5-6 years or so, something like that. And so that's what I did for a long time, because I wanted to see how good I can get. Can I go to the Olympics? Can I fight some of the top fighters? And that was my main thing. I told my coach and my good friend Stephen Decker that when we decided to have Soraya, after I decided, okay, I'm about done seeing how far I can go, how high I can get, this is where I think I'm gonna stop. I told him once we have Soraya, and once we have my daughter, that I probably won't compete anymore because I feel like once I have her, I'm going to put all the love I have for Taekwondo is going to shift. It's going to shift from Taekwondo. It's going to shift to my daughter, and that's exactly what happened. And so it's not like I lost myself per se. I sort of traded one thing that I gave my all to, which is Taekwondo and training and competing, and I shifted that energy and love and effort to her, and I knew I was going to do that. So it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden I became a dad and I don't know who or what I want to do. I'm still an artist. I'm still a person that likes hang out and and work out and do Taekwondo, even teach it sometimes. But I'm not that athlete anymore. And that's something I will say that I gave up to be a father, to be a dad. Identity-wise, though, I think I've always wanted to be a dad. So I've always, in a way, identified as a person that will be a dad or plan to be a dad in the future. So I don't think I really lost much there, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that's so interesting that it was an intentional shift for you. Isn't that, Sonja, did you hear that too? That was...
Oh, I wish I had that.
Right. I mean, truly, it's fantastic. David, it sounds like you were about to speak as well. Thank you so much, Stephon.
Well, I think Richard hit on part of it earlier when he was talking about the things that you start to worry about that you might not have worried about before. But the thing I noticed was when you become a parent, and I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I have heard or read or, made up myself, I don't know which, that while there is a very strong maternal instinct, when a woman gives birth, there is a strong maternal instinct that kind of guides them, even if they don't really know what they're doing, they somehow instinctively do the right thing most of the time. And that there's not really a paternal instinct. Men don't have that automatic thing that happens. But for me, it was almost like there was. I mean, it changed the way I looked at everything. Parenthood, I think, it changes the way you look at life overall. It changes the way you look at yourself as your role in the world and what you're supposed to do and who you're supposed to be. For one, you no longer can be content to worry about yourself. You have this brand new human being that cannot do anything for itself, and you are entirely responsible to make sure that nothing bad happens. And so it changes not only your outlook on life from your personal standpoint and what you're going to do and where you're going to go, to, what's the rest of the world doing, and how are they screwing things up for my kid? and so you look at everything differently when you become a parent, because you have this life that you're responsible for, and that that never goes away. My son's 29 years old, and you never stop worrying if they're okay, and if they're if they're healthy, and if they're eating, and if they're taking care of themselves, and especially when they don't live close by.
And then David, do you feel like, in terms of the identity pre-Austin, did that shift? Did you trade? Did you struggle? Was there a battle? What was that like for you?
No, I don't think so. I think I just tried to turn him into me, so that they're
Perfect.
So now he's a sarcastic asshole. So
in the best way possible.
So yeah, I've created
loving way possible.
And I mean that in the kindest possible way. But I didn't have a real identity battle, in that I don't that part of my life didn't change, except the sense of responsibility that came with the birth of my son, but I mean, and I mean that in all of its positive ways as well, not just, oh my God, this terrible responsibility, but wow, look at all the things that are now in my life that I would not have known anything about. And like, I never heard of peanut allergies until I was a parent. I'm sure there must have been kids that had peanut allergies when I was a kid, but I didn't know them. So you learn about all kinds of things when you have a kid.
And then so Richard, of course, I'm curious, because at the age that you had, we had our firstborn, you had a lot of different paths. I mean, reveal, like, with sense of identity, how would you define it, and was there any trade or conflict?
I don't see myself as having conflict. It was pretty much, for me, I was always looking to kind of fulfill like this need to explore the world. So when our firstborn came along, I wanted to get a motorcycle, right? So I ended up getting a motorcycle, and you and I went on the trip, and then eventually, after a few rides, one time I took it to work, and I hit an oil spill, and I laid the bicycle down, not going the motorcycle down, not going super fast. And, I bruised the rib, and then on the way, I picked up the bike and I still rode it to work. And on the way to work, I said, if you lost your job, how's Bella gonna keep going to school, and how are you gonna pay the mortgage, and then it was like, so I think a couple of weeks later I sold the bike, and so that's how I learned about that type of responsibility and that weight that came. So and that's just one of the many examples that I learned to live in my life, was that I still seeked all this adventure, and that I didn't have growing up, that I wanted to just like, oh, the world is mine, I just want all of it, right? So so it's this balance of being responsible, doing the right thing, and but also explore the world, especially in my early years. By the time Gabby came along, I was reconciled with it. I was like, I'm more at ease with myself and who I was as a person and in my career. So, and I think that just came with maturity. I no longer, wanted to go hours and hours mountain biking like I did when I was with Gabby, right? I'd go on the weekend, pretty much go all day, right? So that changed. And, and then I was looking for long camping trips with Gabby, right? Versus not. So it's just a different phase of my life, and how we approach, parenting. When I was growing up, I was the oldest, like you, Stephon, and I was pretty much taught how to care for, my siblings. So I wouldn't call it parenting.
Pretty close.
Right, and so that was one of the things I learned is being a caregiver is not being a parent. It's not being a father, and so that lesson didn't really hit me until my second, and saying, you know what, although I think I was an outstanding caregiver, I really didn't know how to be a parent until later on in life. So that to me was a revelation, and I wish I would have waited a little bit longer to learn that lesson. And maybe it was my first one that, just based on how I approach life, that paved that road for me to enjoy my life better with the second child. So so that was interesting. And one of the things I wanted to say was, like, all the I want to thank you guys, because you kind of, one of the questions you say, this identity, right? When you pose that question, you make me kind of look internally, which I think I rarely do. I think I've always been an observer of the world, and I look outside and look at other people. I like to people watch, and there's few moments where I look internally, and you guys made me do that in this show. Or in this I'm calling it a show now. Look at that. In this program. So thank you, and yeah, that's something that I rarely do, that I'd like to do more of, and then making that separation of, okay, I'm going to leave parenthood and let's look inside and see what you're really like now as you continue to be a parent and husband and whatever other roles you play in life.
That was not because of my age, was not as big a factor for me. I was 42. I was well established in my career, and I was not quite as self-absorbed as I had been all through my 20s and 30s. You're supposed to be self-absorbed in your 20s. You're supposed to start getting over it in your 30s, and so that was kind of gone. So that part of the identity issue wasn't there for me, because I was already who I was, and for better or worse, and that was probably not going to change much. But one of the good things that happened right after Austin was born, he was less than a year old, I think, is my career took a really nice turn upward financially. And Ryan was able to stop working and stay home with Austin all the way into the third grade. And then she only started working because she was hanging out at his school so much. They said, why don't you just work here? So that started a whole new career for her. and that was just a, you know, not the identity, that part of me feeling like I might have missed something I wanted to do was not a part of it.
Well, and I wonder, I appreciate that. And I wonder to some degree, and maybe each of you can speak to this too, and I happen to have a little insider information. I think part of, for you, Richard, you know, is some of what formed you as a child. And I mean, you had a lot of things going on that all of a sudden when you had freedom probably made things a little different from you, the way that you approached things, like, wow, I have a second where I can go explore the world in a way that's this safe, unique way that's still adventurous. So are there parts of your childhood that you think sort of imprinted how you approach your identity now in your fatherhood?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, being the oldest and, you know, you have your mom, you know, a single parent and constantly working, you know, one of the things that I remember as a childhood that I'm really fond of is having this freedom, right? Of like going and ride the bikes with my siblings and say, like, let's take the bike, even though we're not supposed to, right? So we would ride on for hours, you know, miles and miles away from home. So imagine like, you know, a 4-year-old and, you know, whatever between, you know, up to, you know, 10-year-olds. So we were all riding our bikes and, you know, this little, you know, imagine 3 kids kind of falling behind and going and exploring the world and climbing on trees and roofs and jumping from whatnot. And I was the leader of the pack. And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, how did we make it, right? How did, but we did, you know, and there's a lot of good memories there. And one of the lessons for me was like, you know, you got to have fun in life. There's a lot of challenges, and that play, that fun, makes you survive the craziest moments. And that's something that I like to bring, you know, as a parent. That you know, I like to have a lot of fun with my daughters. I like to take them out of their comfort zone. You know, my oldest is very shy. She's risk adverse. So I make her climb really high stuff, and I make her uncomfortable in social settings, and just so that you know, she just gets out of that comfort zone and I think learns a little bit more in the process. And if worst case is that we just, you know, have a good laugh, right? And
Kind of like climbing up on a roof and watching a sunset, which just happened, right?
that's right, exactly. But now I think it's a lot safer than it was when I was a kid.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate that. Oh, Stephon, did you have any thoughts that went on about your upbringing and what that brought to you being a father?
Oh, yes. So like Richard, I grew up as the oldest. There was with a single parent, with my mom. And so there was 4 of us when I was growing up, and then my dad had a couple other kids. So I'm the oldest, but I'm the oldest of like 7. So growing up, there was 4 of us, and much like Richard, I was kind of the leader of the pack, and I would go out, we would explore, we would hang out, we would do stuff. My main approach from when I was a child, though, I always loved to learn whatever I can learn. I'm a very process-oriented artist, and basically what that means is I like to learn really in-depth processes and put them to work. I do that with everything, though. I like to learn as much as I can. So a lot of the times I would sit and observe and kind of see what's going on. But as an artist, I can't just observe it. I have to create it into something. I have to morph it into something. So growing up, I would do a lot of that with my siblings, and we would play. We would come up with all sorts of random, odd games. And we weren't like the most well off, but we always had fun, and we always did cool stuff together. But not having a dad growing up definitely taught me, well, not necessarily not having a dad, but not having a dad around or that male figure definitely taught me things that I didn't want to happen or I didn't want to do. And some of the feelings I had growing up of being lost or not really knowing how I should be as a male, as a man, especially as a Black man growing up in America. I didn't really have like that sort of guidance, so I figured whenever I have kids, I was going to do the complete opposite. I'm going to be there. I'm going to help guide them. I'm going to make sure nothing um, seems more important to me other than them. Um, and not necessarily losing my identity with that, but that became my identity. I knew that's what I wanted to do because I figured if I learn enough, I can share enough, at least of what I've learned and my experiences. And the main thing I really craved growing up was just that figure, that person, to laugh with, to do random stuff with, to be, to try to make proud of, or to not make disappointed. So moving into as a father, and I was going to mention this earlier, that's why it was easier for me to transition from Taekwondo athlete to parent, because I knew that I had already done a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. I traveled the country. I've seen a lot of the stuff. I've studied abroad in Italy, and I've been to Costa Rica and lots of different places, lots of different countries. So I've done a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do right away before having a kid. So it was easier to transition into that role. I mean, because I'm 29 now, so I had her when I was 27. I went through high school, I went through college, and even 5 years of marriage before we were like, okay, we're about ready to have kids now. We've done a lot of stuff. We've explored the world together. We can, build our legacy now. And so, yeah, I think that answers your question in a roundabout way.
It does. Thank you so much, Stephon. I really appreciate it. David, how about you? Were there things in your childhood that you feel like you brought, that impacted how you were a father?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My mother was great. She was a great mom, but she was kind of stereotypical in that when I did something stupid, she had little tolerance or little forgiveness for it. My father, on the other hand, had a great gift to be able to remember when he was a kid. And so anytime I did something, I didn't get in trouble with the law or do anything terribly destructive, but like any kid from 10 to 18 years old, I did my share of stupid stuff. And while my father never, said that's okay or never condoned it, he was able to temper his judgment of it and his response to it by remembering when he was my age and had probably done something even more stupid than whatever it was I just did. So I think it's an unusual gift in a parent to be able to keep that little keep that child back there so that they can remember those things and not be so unduly harsh when your kids do the same things. And so I really tried hard to bring that to my parenthood and to make it clear to my son that, this is not acceptable behavior. We don't do this. But I never pretended that I wouldn't possibly have ever done that myself. It helps to try to keep your inner child handy when you're parenting, just so that you for one thing it makes parenting more fun, but the other thing is it makes you a little less judgmental.
Agreed.
So work. So, all right. So kind of closing up, but we want to speak to the other parents. So mothers, wives, partners who are raising young boys. What would you say to them in terms of but what it takes to raise an adult man? What advice do you have for that other partner?
Yeah, I want to know. I have 2 boys. I want to know.
Hilary. This question's for Hilary, really.
It really is. I'm like, okay, I'm selfish right now. What do you wish that your mom, would have done or did do, or things where you can say, hey, part of young men becoming adult men or fathers and role models and so on is this is what would be really helpful.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Go for it.
I mean, all of us know the things that we're supposed to teach our kids. We all know what those things are. You teach people to be honest and fair and treat everybody with respect and all of those things that that are cliches. We're not always great examples of the kind of behavior that we want our kids to exhibit, but I think most of us try pretty hard. But if I had to single out one thing to teach a young boy or a young man, because it seems that it may have gotten away from us a little bit, and that is to have respect for girls and women. It's and it may not be any worse right now than it ever was, but it just seems like we may have kind of lost that thread somewhere. I think you have to teach a boy when he's very young that little girls and later on women they're not to be put on a pedestal or idolized or in some other way worshiped, but to be respected, and teach them what that means. Teach them just like they should know that when anyone says don't do that, I'm offended by that, or then you stop what you're doing and re-examine what you're doing. And when a woman and I'm fumbling with this, but we all know that when a woman says no, that's uncomfortable, I don't want you to do that, then we need for our sons to understand what that means. And if we don't, I'm afraid if we don't teach them that from day 300 or something, from the time that they're very young enough, first old enough to understand that we're wasting that opportunity.
That's
to
that actually
raise
made me tear up.
respectful young men. I'm sorry?
It made me tear up actually, because that's yeah, beautiful.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, David. No, that's great. No, I appreciate that. Stephon or Richard?
Young boys, young men. I think the important things.
Richard, we're going to come back to you. I'm going to let Stephon go, and then we're going to come back to you because you're frozen. So we'll give you a second to get unfrozen, and we'll listen to Stephon for a second. So sorry.
Your internet connection catch up with you.
Yes. Stephon, did you have some thoughts?
Well, I was actually going to say what Dave was saying, to respect women. And it's interesting because they'll learn a slightly different lesson from like the mom's perspective and then from the dad's perspective. They need both, I think, because I think it's necessary. As a woman, as a mom, you know how you would like to be treated. You know how things that you didn't like, things that made you uncomfortable. Maybe things that you wish you would have said, but didn't say to someone that made you uncomfortable or something like that. Guys don't necessarily know that sort of stuff. And so to learn how to see those signs, not just verbal signs, but other things you can see, you can sense, like how to sense that sort of stuff. Like, can you sense you're making someone uncomfortable, or can you sense that they're not really happy with something that you said or going on? Like, we don't really know that sort of stuff. It's kind of a hard learned thing that we kind of try to figure out along the way. A lot of us don't do that great at it. But I think one thing that my mom did that was pretty good was she always instilled that in all of us. There was 3 of us boys growing up, and 1 girl, 1 daughter. The youngest is the daughter. And so the main thing was we basically learned how to treat women based on how we treat our sister and our mom, And so for other moms out there, if they don't have like that, younger sister necessarily on you to do that, but it definitely helps you kind of implement that information. Just like, not necessarily be naggy about it, but don't let up, be relentless, and I think kind of what Dave said before, be consistent with it. It's not all of a sudden okay because one day and it's not okay the next day. If it's not okay, then it's not okay.
And I think you're right. Having sisters helps. I had two sisters, and so that. But if you're raising a boy with no other women in the house, no other females in the house, then it really is up to you to do the.
Yeah, like I said, it's mom and dad, but
Yeah.
a lot of the dad doesn't know what makes everything that makes mom uncomfortable, or what makes women uncomfortable, or subtle signs that women don't like or may be afraid of or may not speak up about. Like, we don't know
I
that.
have news for you. You will go to your grave not knowing.
And I have to share something that's coming up, and then I want to see if we can get Richard. I'm hoping, Richard, that your connection stays with us so we can hear what you have to say, and then we'll close out, because I feel like I could talk to you guys for another hour. This is so interesting. I love you all so much. It's just been such an honor. But one of the things I was going to offer, and I guess maybe more to Stephon at this point, because the other kids are older. One of the most powerful things that my husband ever did as a father for me as a mother was, I remember the first time that my beautiful innocent boys, who would never mouth off to me, mouthed off to me. And Jeff did not say, "Don't say that to your mother." He said, "Do not say that to my wife." And it was a subtle change, but those boys' eyes, because they realized like there was something, yes, dad protects us, but there's a whole nother level than that's here. It's the way that dad views mom.
Yeah, that was an excellent way to put it. Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, we really don't have to deal with back talk.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's so much more effective than punching them in the throat.
I mean, maybe, possibly, potentially. Yeah, Richard, I'm praying that we get you to stay with us here.
His trees are blowing, so it must be okay.
Yes.
So you hear me okay?
Yes.
No, I think for me, as far as boys and parenting, I think that having them interact with their physical world more, getting it out, play, don't underestimate those things, building with their hands. I think we are going into a lot of service industry jobs and technology, and I think I feel young men are being left out because they're just more physically adapt to sports and introducing, not letting go of those physical activities and helping them build stuff and introducing some of those trades that might have gotten lost. I think that's super important, especially for a young man who's exploring his strength and other ability to look at the world differently. I think that's from what I've seen is super important. Those were anchors to me growing up. Spending times welding and in the shop and physically working out there, exploring my strength. That was I love to read too, but those moments are something that I to this date I think added to my personality. And I think oftentimes boys get a bad rap for exploring the physical world. So don't beat them up too much. I think it's just part of exploring their strength, I think.
Yeah. And in fact, maybe give them the opportunity where it is okay to do that, is what I hear you saying loud and clear. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think so.
Sonja, we're getting ready to wrap up here. Any last?
No, I'm learning so much. I don't want to let them go.
I don't either. I know. Do you guys want to hang out a little bit longer?
No, it's bedtime for Stephon.
I know. He's like,
I'm okay.
I have to get up with a 2-year-old soon. Do we want to close out before we just thank them and give our challenge with asking about Father's Day, Sonja?
Yes, because I want to know. Yeah, so let's just close out with one more question. It could be
Yeah,
really,
just a short little snippet for us.
we can't take the massive trips now. We're still dealing with the pandemic, but Father's Day is coming. So what's like the best gift ever that we should be planning for? Is it too late? Do we have enough time?
Oh man, just put me in front of a fire with meat on a stick, and I'll be happy.
You got it.
Sonja, send me a picture. I want to see it.
He just wants a corn dog. For me, because my son, I only get to see him 2 or 3 times a year for a few days at a time. He's in Monterey, and of course everybody's still sort of hunkered down. And what would make the best Father's Day for me would be if he could be here and spend a couple of days. And I've told him this a lot over his lifetime, particularly times when he was a little older and sort of on his own, but not financially able to buy me a gift for something, particularly like Father's Day or something. And I have always told him, the best gift you can give me is your time, just a little bit of your time. That's more valuable to me than any present you could go buy. And so that's what would make Father's Day great for me, is if he could spend a couple of days here, but that's not going to happen.
Maybe a call, maybe a little, maybe you guys
call,
do a Zoom happy hour.
Yeah.
Those things are not the same. That is just an what do you call it?
What?
The Zoom thing?
Oh, yeah.
Not the same.
It isn't. I hear you. Although sometimes you can record just a really quick. So my son just graduated and our family couldn't be here. So we got family from all over the country to come on and surprised him. He sat down in his cap and gown, and I got to record them all saying something to him so he can play it back and hear.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you could always get him to come on and say, now say nice things about me. I'm going to record it.
All right.
That reminds me, Sonja, I don't know if I told you this or not, but when the book first came out and people started talking about when they read it, it made them cry. And Ryan asked Austin, she was telling Austin that and asked him if it made him cry. And he said, no, it was a good letter, but it didn't make me cry. And so when I signed a copy for him, I said, hold on to this, because when I'm gone, it will make you cry, you little snot.
Oh, I think that's like cute and funny all at the same time. Yeah. Stephon?
So I'm not really big on holidays per se, because I prefer to really just celebrate every day. If I want to do something special with my family, for my wife or whatever, I don't wait for like just a birthday. I just do it because I want to do it. This is the type of person I am. So for Father's Day, it's just going to be really another day for me. And I'm already doing kind of the stuff that I really would want to do, which is hang out with my daughter all day, hang out with my wife, and just hang out, not have to work. That's probably the only thing I could probably think of. A lot of people contact me for great Father's Day ideas because I create things. So I tend to create gifts for parents for Father's Day. So you can hit up my website. But like I'm working on a set of backhouse boards that I'm painting for someone. I'm sure they're gonna give to me as a Father's Day gift, I'm guessing. But I've done stuff like that, and those types of things that are made specifically for parents are really popular because you can't do it yourself. You can't just buy it at the store. So if I was telling other people what kind of gifts to get something handmade, get something that like, hey, I know Hilary really likes Taekwondo. She's really into fitness and whatnot. So get something that really speaks to that person, that makes them think you thought about them. Nice. But for me personally, I just want to hang out with my family. Just want to be home, not have to worry about work, not have to worry about whatever's going on in the outside world. Just secluded.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You guys were just so insightful. I'm so grateful for your time. I know it's over time that we promised, that we said, it's only going to be really quick. We hogged all that time, and just thank you. I truly grew as a person during this last hour.
I feel that too.
And as a parent.
Yeah, and we are going to make sure that everybody's websites and links and for Stephon's artistry and for websites for Richard and for the book as well for David, all of those things are going to be implanted here in the description when we post it, because you do want to check this out. I have to say, following Stephon, like my favorite part about following Stephon besides his art is he periodically just posts his daughter giggling and and like we all need a 2-year-old giggling. I'm telling you.
That's contagious.
Yes.
It is. And speaking
I call them little doses of pure kid joy. Everyone can use a little pure kid joy.
It really is. And I just like Sonja said, I am so grateful to all three of you. I feel like, as she said, we've grown, we've learned. I think our listeners or viewers are going to have grown and learned so much from all three of you. And we're going to challenge them, actually, because we're feeling so much gratitude for you all. We're going to challenge them, if they want to go on our Instagram page for Decided Hearts, to drop in what are they grateful for their own fathers. I know, looking at you, Stephon, I have always been grateful for the peace and the joy and the calm and you own a room in a way that includes so many people. And thank you so much for that. And Sonja, gratitude for these other two.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, David, again, I've read on the beginning, I have to say that I'm just addicted to your sense of humor. Yes, you're sarcastic, but there's such a genuine authenticity about you that makes others really connect and say you speak truth. You speak honesty. So that's why our relationship will probably last a lifetime. And then Richard, I hope our relationship lasts a lifetime.
Better last a lifetime. No.
I just have to say the courage. This is the most courageous man that I've ever met. And a really quick story, like when Bella was born, my firstborn, I looked at her and I was like, I don't know what to do. So that maternity thing, I don't know. I gave it to Richard. Do what you Miss Richard, like the caregiving, wrapped her up like a football, and it's like I got it. Like one hand, I was like, genius. You know, the intimacy had to develop, but wow, I mean, I'm just so grateful. I mean, and the courage. It's been an amazing adventure. So
thank you. I really appreciate being invited and included in this. It's always a joy to see you, but I'm honored that you considered me for this. Thank you.
So welcome. Thank you. So we won't read a bedtime story for you, Stephon, but we are going to tuck you in for bed.
Absolutely. Thank you all. To our Decided Heart listeners, we will see you next week. And I hope that you enjoy celebrating the fathers in your lives.
Happy Father's Day, guys.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, you three.
Bye.
So that's just our job, is to figure that piece out. So, okay, perfect.
Yeah, you're the ones that are supposed to keep us from looking stupid.
We absolutely will. We will do our best. You guys